This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroups.com.
Hello, and welcome back once again. You thought we were done talking X-Men, but we are not. Because some plucky young man decided he needed to talk X-Men. So tonight, myself and Mr. Tyler Patrick of the Krypton Report are going to talk how would we fix the X-Men movie franchise. And there he is right there. Say hello, Mr. Tyler Patrick.
Hey, everybody.
That's right. So, after everyone's been talking about it this weekend, how would you fix the X-Men movie universe? Well, we're going to do it tonight. I have some thoughts. I bet you have some thoughts.
I do.
Got my Deadpool cup ready to go.
I was online today, see if I could find some cheap Ruby Juliets, because I still want those sunglasses. I do. Yeah, I was bummed I didn't get to join you guys last night. Just work, life, stuff like that. But I do want to say real quick here, I think Dark Phoenix, it was doomed from the beginning for multiple reasons. One, the rehash of Dark Phoenix. Two, as soon as they announced that Disney looking at buying 20th Century Fox, it was like everybody lost interest in whatever they were going to do, and it was just waiting for the reboot.
Yeah.
So I think that killed a lot of momentum. The other thing is this story is so big, and we didn't get to know these characters at all. I mean, they were half introduced in Apocalypse. And I think, I went and saw it. I like it. I mean, I think that's what I can say about every X-Men film is I like it. There's always things that bug me where they tried to retcon, they tried to fix, but I felt like there was never anybody watching continuity. And, my favorite X film is First Class. And I feel like that movie, no matter how you do it, that movie has so many errors in it that make it difficult to connect it. Because the other movies, the newest two, you can explain away with time travel. But First Class still doesn't work either way, with continuity errors. And I've been rewatching all of them, so I've been taking notes and making maps.
Well, it just seems like the original trilogy and even like Wolverine Origins, it's like they were just like, okay, what mutants haven't we used yet? How many mutants haven't we used yet? And not worrying about a timeline until they were just like, and then it's like, oh, okay, so Havoc is older than Cyclops, which
dude, no. Like, oh my gosh, I did the math. Even lowballing it, okay? Havoc will be 40 years old in X-Men Apocalypse with his brother at 16.
Yeah.
That's a son, man. Okay? Like, that just, like, they play, that's the thing that gets me the most about these new X-Men movies is the 10-year jumps.
Yeah.
And nobody ages.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what makes me mad. I'm like, you went from the 60s to the 70s to the 80s to the 90s, and it looks like nobody has aged at all.
Yeah, that's what I said yesterday. I'm like, with Mystique, you can explain it in a way. She's a shapeshifter. She can make herself look young forever, basically.
Yeah.
I think I saw somewhere online someone was saying, in Dark Phoenix, they're saying Magneto's supposed to be in his 60s.
61, I think, for Magneto, and 62 for Magneto, and 61 for Xavier.
And I mean, I know some people can look good, but still, that's pushing it.
Right. I mean, that's what gets me the most, and that's what irritates me the most with these is the time jumps without any idea of aging up characters. And in Dark Phoenix, you're supposed to have Cyclops, Storm, and Jean be the adults, and they still look like teenagers.
Yeah. I
mean, and they're supposed to be like in their late 20s. If Cyclops, let's say Cyclops is 16 in Apocalypse, he's 26, 27 now.
I know.
Exactly, and he looks like he's like 17.
That was a bad idea to say, oh, every movie is going to be a different decade if they weren't going to like change actors or like give them the makeup or something. It should have just been whatever.
Or they're like, how many times can we put Jubilee in a movie and not really use Jubilee? Just or Pyro or Shadowcat until the third film when it was a whole new. It's
Pyro was Australian in the comics.
Yeah. So that's why, like, we're here today, Phil, is to talk. So here's my first question before we start off. As we get into how would Phil and Tyler fix this and start this, would you put now this is kind of hard to say because we know change is coming, but would you want the X-Men in the MCU as it stands now? Or would you want to start the X-Men over by Marvel in their own separate kind of continuity, build their own universe just with the X characters?
They don't have to be in their own continuity, but I want Marvel to start over from scratch with them.
Well, yeah. That's what we're talking about. Do you want them in the MCU or their own thing?
I don't know. I mean, you don't have to throw them into the MCU right away. I mean, you could give them a couple, 2 or 3 movies to maybe introduce them before. But I mean, either way, I'm fine. Just as long as it's a clean slate. That's like I said, like kind of stay comic book accurate. If you don't want to go with the original 5 X-Men in the first movie, you can kind of go with that team, that Wolverine, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler team, and then like show the original 5 through like flashbacks or something.
Mm-hmm. So, because my thought process is this. I would like the X-Men to be in the MCU in a way, but in another way, I don't. And I say that because the X-Men have such a rich history, and they have their story is so much allegorical for so many different things that we deal with a social environment, that I feel like when you bring that to what the MCU's established, it kind of takes away from the MCU and from X-Men. And part of it is, think about it like this. You have Steve Rogers, experiment. The Hulk, experiment, accident. Spider-Man, experiment. And these people went through these traumas and have decided to be heroes. Well, if you start making it that anybody can be a superhero because they're born that way, and they have to choose that lifestyle, but then you're starting to take the specialness away from Spider-Man, from Captain America, because, you got super strength? Dude, I was born with that. It's my mutant power. It's like you're just trying to copy us. And because the X-Men's history, it dates back so much, you start to say, well, where were mutants during other events? I think, but like I said, we don't know where we're going with the MCU. Yeah,
there's even theories that like one of the snaps, created mutants or broke,
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of like, okay, if one of the snaps created mutants, or they're in a splintered, timeline that we're going to discover, and we're going to get into like altered reality where now mutants have been in our history. Okay, but that's a conversation for another day. But I like having the X-Men separate, just because I feel like there's more depth to their story that just adds weight, and there's more you could do with them. One thing I do want to point out. So, like I was saying earlier, I've been rewatching the films.
Yeah.
Solomon does not like them. He is afraid of them.
None of them?
And so far, this is what's happened. The commercial for Dark Phoenix freaks him out. He'll cover his eyes. And even the poster, we went and saw Detective Pikachu, and there was a huge poster, and he was like, Daddy, I don't want to see it. And I was watching the regular first X-Men yesterday morning, and he came out and sat down with me. I was like, what you watching? I was like, X-Men. And then he's watching a little bit of it, and he goes, Daddy, I'm scared. And this is the same boy, okay? Who said, Daddy, when are we going to go see the new Hellboy? Okay? So just putting it in some context. And I got thinking, like, maybe it's because it's lit dark, it's acted dark, the imagery is dark.
Unless Phoenix just scared him off the rest of them. I mean, I could see those.
I don't.
A little scary.
The one that I have, like, I want to watch First Class with him around just to see if he reacts any different, because that movie's so bright.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I got thinking about, like, and watching, like, I remember watching the first X-Men and being like, it is dark, very muted. It's coming off the back of Blade and the Matrix, where everything's about black.
Oh yeah,
that's why they have.
Yeah.
That's why they have the black, outfits. And even X2, like, I remember leaving the theater, like, man, that just felt dark and like draining. Like, it was good, but I didn't have fun.
Yeah, I think the first X-Men was only 3 years after Batman and Robin. I think they were like, okay, we can't make it light. We can't make it.
Well, I mean, if we think about in continuity, 3 years. Okay, think 3 years ago. That was 2016. BVS, Civil War. What else do we have that year? Daredevil season 2. Suicide Squad. What was the other Marvel in 2016? Was it Doctor Strange?
Maybe. Or was it Guardian? Or was it Guardians 2? It was something.
Yeah. I want to say Guardians 2 was 17.
Yeah, maybe.
I could be wrong.
It might have been Doctor Strange. Or Ant-Man.
I thought Ant-Man was 15.
Okay. Then maybe it was Doctor Strange.
So just let's think about those. In that time frame doesn't feel that long. But from 97 at Batman and Robin, Spawn, Steel are coming out that summer.
Yeah.
To 2000. Like, man, what a change.
Yeah, I know.
You know, like, and this, you know,
and
I feel like
I remember when Blade came out, most people like who didn't know comics didn't know that was like a comic book character. They did not promote that at all as like, you know, any kind of comic book movie.
Blade was like the soft touch of, can we do this? And then X-Men was like, okay, we built a little bit of confidence. Let's try something with a bigger name.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I feel like the X-Men film we got was safe. It was like playing into the world that we lived in, and it's helped guide where we are today.
So then, like, the first lighter one back was probably Raimi's Spider-Man.
Yes, it is. You know, I'm just trying to think, you know, we had the Fantastic Four. You know, I can't put my finger on it. They're not great, but they're not horrible.
Yeah.
Silver Surfer had flaws, okay? But like the first one, I enjoyed. It was nothing great. It wasn't like, man, but it was fun. It was lighthearted. I haven't watched it in a while, but I just remember like,
yeah, those first two Fantastic Fours, like, I mean, yeah, they're not perfect, but they're like most of the X-Men movies. I'm like, I mean, they're watchable. I mean, they're on TV. I'll watch them. They're not bad. Not like that 2000. Wasn't that 2015? That Fantastic Four.
Yes.
Go. Yeah.
The one we
felt horrible.
We don't talk about it.
Yeah, I know.
You know, so I mean, just thinking of early Marvel before the MCU, and I always try to tell people you got to distinct between a Marvel film,
yeah,
and then like a movie that's made by a company that is a Marvel property.
Yeah,
X-Men being one. At this time, we had Daredevil in
2003. Yeah.
We had the Hulk, and was it 3? The Ang Lee Hulk was in
one. I
want to say it was 3.
It might have been. It was either 3 or 4. 2003 or 4, I think.
I think it was 3.
Maybe.
I think it was right as yeah. And then we had Elektra, which sucked.
Ugh.
We had the Spider-Mans.
Yeah.
We had the Thomas Jane Punisher, which was in 2004, 3. I think it was 4.
And then wasn't it 2005 Batman Begins?
Yep. And that was the next game changer.
Mm-hmm.
So that, for all of our young listeners, that's just kind of the landscape we were in. Like,
yeah.
We would maybe get one comic book movie a year, and we held on to that.
Mm-hmm. And then what was X2? Wasn't it at
3? It was 2002 or 3.
Yeah, I think it was 3. I think it might have been 3. Yeah,
because I think I was because I was about to be. Yeah.
And then the last stand was 2006. Yeah,
because I remember seeing the poster and thinking, wow, that's odd. Because the Superman Returns poster was out, and I knew Bryan Singer had done Superman Returns.
Yeah, that's right.
And I hadn't heard anything about X3, and then I was like, oh, they went ahead and did it. And I remember watching the trailer for X3 and just saying to myself, they're going to kill Cyclops in this movie. Just from the trailer, I was like, he's dead.
Yeah, and
they did.
That's another thing they never explained. They kill off Xavier, which I buy that he put his mind in another body, but then every movie, like after the Wolverine, it's just like it looks like him.
Well, see, I can buy he put his mind in another body, but then that body wouldn't have his mutant ability because it's just his mind, you know, like because if it was his mutant ability, he can make people perceive him as Xavier.
Yeah.
But then it is like he can walk again. So I mean, like it's just one of those things where after a while you're just like, F it.
They should have just said clone body. They've done it before in the comics. They
you know, I mean, you're just after a while you're like your brain hurts. Like Moira McTaggart in X-Men 3 is redheaded Irish doctor like she's supposed to be. And then she shows up in First Class and Apocalypse, and she's American and she doesn't age either.
Oh yeah. Well, that's like, I mean, don't get me started. Amazing Spider-Man 2, Dr. Kafka, that like German guy, is like a woman in the comics, and a married woman. Yeah, it's very.
But I mean, there's all kinds of little continuity errors we could discuss watching the X films.
I mean, if for no other reason, the MCU will be good for the X-Men just because someone will have a Bible that's, they'll lay out a timeline from day one. That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
With Fox, they were okay, first movie, who's popular mutants? Wolverine, Rogue, Storm, Cyclops, and then it's like, oh, well, who can we add to number 2? It's like, oh, let's add the Phoenix to it, let's bring in Lady Deathstrike.
Yes.
Then in the third movie, oh, let's bring in the Juggernaut, and not even mention that he's supposed to be Professor X's stepbrother.
Yeah, my God. Don't get me started.
Yeah, I know.
All right. Or how many different angels do we get? Or people using the name Angel?
I could almost write that off because the second one was after Days of Future Past, so you did rewrite the timeline.
Yeah, but I hate that they used Tempest in First Class and she called herself Angel.
Oh, yeah, I know.
That annoyed me. Okay, so let's get to what we're talking about. If we were hired and we were going to reboot X-Men, I've been thinking about this.
All right, let me throw something into the pot that maybe help.
Okay.
Do you think maybe the stuff after Days of Future Past suffered because these last 2 movies, because they didn't have an anchor? Because anything good that came from those first couple movies, I think was because you kind of worked the universe around Wolverine.
Yeah, I mean Wolverine. Okay, so in the first X-Men film, Wolverine is our character as the audience. Yeah. He's our in. He's experienced the world, we're experiencing the world, and they really embraced him. And his arc is the first 3 X-Men films.
Yeah.
And then of course he comes back in Days of Future Past, got his own series.
Yeah.
And the First Class suffered because 2011 is the year that Marvel was bought by Disney.
Mm.
Okay. So during that time, if you look at it, there was very little promotion, no merchandising, no tie-ins. It was very under the radar. That movie came. I remember telling my brother I was going to see. He's like, "Oh, it's out," because that's the year we had Captain America. Thor.
Yeah, I remember people saying, "Oh, there's an X-Men movie." I'm like, "Yeah."
Janine and I went and saw it, loved it, went back the next day.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I did where I went to Best Buy and they had all the X-Men films for $5, plus you got a $5 ticket for First Class, and I bought X1, 2, 3, and Origins.
Yeah.
So I spent $20 and got Janine and I both 2 tickets to First Class. And we went and saw it twice. So that was the best $20 I ever spent. But so thinking about that, okay. First off, in my idea, things I would do is 1, it wouldn't be an origin film for the X-Men. Xavier would be have his school.
No, not the X-Women.
Not the X-Women. Okay. 1, here's my rules. No Phoenix. Not even alluded to, nothing.
No, you gotta work up to that. Yeah.
You have to build to that.
Yes.
I would try to keep it grounded in the sense of, let's get to know these mutants and the world that they inhabit before we go cosmic.
Well, again, if they would have had more time, that's what these newer movies, that's what I think, if you're not going to have a Wolverine as the center figure, they should have built up Jean Grey.
And that's the thing is they jumped the gun because we meet the new Jean in Apocalypse.
Yeah.
She gets a little bit, and then don't get me started on how she has a bird figure when she fights Apocalypse, which doesn't make sense because then in Dark Phoenix, she gets the Phoenix. And they basically tell us Jean Grey is a worthless character unless she's the Dark Phoenix. That's the only thing that gives her a character value.
And again, it looks like at the end of Apocalypse, she has the Phoenix, but then she doesn't get it until this movie.
Right. It doesn't make sense.
That's the other thing. The MCU will not let them do that.
No, they won't. And so, with that in mind, I would hold off on Magneto. Eric Lyncher would be referenced by Charles Xavier in some way, form, where he would talk about his friend, the person that he has worked with, but as a presence in my first reboot film, he is not present.
Well, what you could do, like I said, if they do flashbacks to the original team, you can maybe show a couple seconds of him fighting the first team. But the earliest you actually bring him in is maybe an end credit scene on the first movie.
Maybe.
Make him a Thanos. He doesn't show up till at least the third movie or fourth movie.
I would hold off because now
it's like I hope when they bring in the Fantastic Four, I hope the first one isn't Doctor Doom, because that's all.
Right.
That's
all they have.
Doctor Doom. It's like they have so many other villains.
Dr. Doom, let's do Doom correctly by putting him in his country and building him up as the ruler, dictator, leader.
And he's not in the cosmic gray storm with them. They always do that too.
Yeah, let's not do that.
He's a man of science, and then he studied like mysticism. That's it. He doesn't have cosmic gray powers like that.
So what I would do, Phil, for my jumping input with the X-Men, is I would kind of do an original team, and I would move up the timeline. Okay, so it'd be Xavier, like, has his school, he has his first 2 students. Okay, and I haven't worked out all the details because I haven't had time. But what I would build my story around is I would really bring in the father-son relationship of Scott Summers and Professor X. I would start with Scott being Xavier's first student.
That's comic accurate too.
Building that, because Cyclops is my favorite X-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And the best scene that he has is the scene where he's with Professor X, who he thinks might be dying, in the first X-Men, where he says, "Whatever happens, old man, I'll take care of them. You've taught me everything worth value."
Yeah. Where
is that story? Okay. So I would start with Scott Summers, maybe Alex as his little brother, and then have Alex's story would change. I don't know. I haven't quite worked out. But what I would want is Xavier. It would be something where Xavier's working with a scientist about mutants, and it would be Nathaniel Essex. Because we were teased, and my villain would be Mr. Sinister, and he would become obsessed with Cyclops. And then I would introduce Jean as, Cyclops is love interest, and build that relationship, and have Sinister obsessed with that family. Like, he builds this, and I haven't worked out all the details of why, and I need to brush up on my comics, but I always liked just the horror aspect of Mr. Sinister.
Mm-hmm.
Just the creepiness of him. And I don't know who all I would put in my team yet, because I'll tell you, one person who would not be in my team is Wolverine.
Well, I was going to say, would you go with the original 5, Cyclops, Jean, Angel, Iceman, and Beast?
I think I would, as the team that he's building.
Yeah.
And because it would have echoes to First Class, but it wouldn't have Magneto.
Yeah.
It would have Xavier starting the school for the school's sake, and then the reluctancy of wanting them to do anything yet. But it becomes when Xavier realizes that the person he thought he was working with is evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I would try to make it more of a personal story. We could even, because I would hold off on any kind of changes, with time travel, with the idea of Cable.
Hold off.
Is it the Goblin Queen? Wasn't that her name? The Jean Grey clone,
Madeline Pryor.
Yeah. I would stay clear of that, and I would just try to focus on Xavier, but I would really want to also play up what was the hate group, the hated mutants that was led by supposedly Sabretooth's dad or whatever, in the animated series.
Oh, grading. Humanity or something. Or
I would want to kind of show that and build up this.
You know what you could have in the first movie? I mean, you do the original team, maybe they can be searching for Alex, because later on, after before Wolverine and all them came in, they added Havoc and Polaris with those original 5. But you could do Sentinels.
Yeah, I want to see Sentinels done, better. I would definitely have a Danger Room scene.
Yeah.
Because we have never had a really good Danger Room scene. The problem with rebooting the X-Men is you're looking at, 12 movies? Or is it, I'm trying to remember, is it 12 X-Men? Hold on, 3,
the original
6,
trilogy,
9,
2
10,
Wolverines,
11, 12, 13 films, I think it is.
Something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's 13 movies with all different continuities that have tried to explore different angles. So you're going to have some sort of story beat repetitiveness, but it's do it right.
Mm-hmm.
Wolverine is a character I would introduce later in his own movie.
Yeah.
I think it would be better to give him a really good, solid solo film and with Omega Red.
Yeah, because you know what else you could do? I think they have done this in the comics before, but you could say Weapon X is like somebody or even like some shadowy government agency's attempt to like recreate the super soldier serum or to do it a different way.
Yeah. And I would want to, like you say, if we did the original 5, because, you know, the problem with the first X-Men film was they wanted to do characters that had been popularized in the 90s cartoon, and they were trying to keep the budget low.
Yeah.
That's why, like, you know, no Beast.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's budget. I would avoid using Mystique.
And it's like, I mean, they don't have to worry about the budget with Disney, but like when Beast first appeared, like that, you know, like he wasn't blue.
Which time, Phil? Was it the time that he was on the TV in the bar when Logan saw him? When they're like, Dr. Hank McCoy.
Oh, I know, but I mean, in the comics, yeah, like he, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
for years
and that
blue, yeah,
and that's what they did in First Class.
Yeah,
you know? So beautiful was he wasn't blue; he was just Beast, and then he, you know, turned blue. Mm-hmm. So you know, your original 5, I think, would be great. Mm-hmm. And you could even do it something where Scott is going with Professor Xavier. Like, I really think that's the core heart, is they're looking for mutants. And Xavier, he hasn't created Cerebro. Like, that'd be something that he would create maybe at the end of the film or start the designs for. It would be something I would need to work towards.
Or he has to create it to find mutants because, I mean, you could do a cliffhanger either the first or second movie where that original team does get captured, and that's when you bring in like your Wolverines and your Storms and... Yeah,
Nightcrawler and in my mind, I think the first film I want is to be a very the heart of the movie is a father and son, and that father and son is, you know, I'd have to dig back into the history of Xavier in the comics, but I'd want to maybe write a story or something where Xavier lost his chance at being a father, and Scott lost his father, so it's So you get this, you build that connection of a man who never got his chance to be a father and a son who needs a father.
And then if you go by the comics, you find out Scott's father's alive, and then Xavier does have a son, which I don't think he knows about for many years.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, that would be the heart of starting the film. And through that, you know, he would build the X-Men and where that would go. Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely more challenging just because you have 13 films that have all played out story plots, and you're going to have, you know, I think the most successful reboot, if you think about it, has been Spider-Man Homecoming, in the sense of being able to just kind of like, hey, he's Spider-Man.
Yeah, they really didn't do it in origin. Yeah.
You know, and they were able to do a pseudo origin, but we didn't have to start from the beginning, and we all accepted it and we're okay with it. Mm-hmm. You know, and they're you know, trying not to repeat themselves with, you know, Harry Osborn, Norman, characters that are crucial to Spider-Man, but have been done so many times that we have to avoid them. And I feel like that's problems you're going to run in with the X-Men is, like with Magneto, like, man, like, we need to give it a break. Wolverine, we need to give a break.
Yeah.
We need to let some of these other characters, because, I mean, originally that original trilogy could just be called Wolverine and the X-Men. Because that's really what it became.
Yeah.
And we have, if you think about it, you have a whole generation of kids who don't know the X-Men.
Yeah.
Because when Disney bought it, they couldn't produce X-Men cartoons. They stopped doing comics. They stopped doing toys and everything. I mean, in the 90s, that was Marvel. That was the face of Marvel, was the X-Men. You had the toys, T-shirts. I mean,
oh yeah, in the 90s, that's the only thing that were selling was Spider-Man and the X-Men.
I mean, that was Fox Kids, you know, in the morning. That's what we did. And then, you know, we get to the 2000s, we get the start of the X-Men movies, and then, you know.
But no, you mentioned the animated series. You know what I think they missed out on in Dark Phoenix? It took place in 92. Xavier should have been in a hover chair.
Yeah. Seriously. Like, we got that in Days of Future Past, but, you know, and okay, also, in the timeline, Xavier would be like 100 and some years old in Days of Future Past. Or in Logan. Logan, he'd be, like almost 100 years old.
Again, they should have said Clone Body. I mean, he was pretty feeble in Logan, but yeah, I mean, yeah, they should have said Clone Body or something. But Logan was the best of those.
I still have issues with Logan, and some of it comes from the fact that I hate that you're like, oh, now it's rated R, and so now they can just drop the F-bomb, and I'm like, it doesn't feel like the characters.
That didn't stop them from dropping one in this movie, and it was PG-13.
Well, they've done it in all three of the First Class movies.
Yeah.
You know, you got the First Class, you got Wolverine gets it. In Apocalypse, Magneto got it. When Apocalypse shows up, he's like, who the F are you?
Yeah.
You get one in a PG-13 movie, Phil.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the Wolverine one kind of made sense, but yeah, those other two are just like, really?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that shows you Fox, you know, just in that sense, like, we can do it. So that's what we're doing, because this is our hard, X-Men's are dark. Mm-hmm. And I mean, yeah, I think in a lot of ways the subject matter that X-Men can encompass is dark, but you still got to have some sort of hope.
Yeah. But I mean,
and guidance.
I don't think they made Logan R for language. They just wanted to show the violence.
And yeah, I know, but I'm saying like that's why it felt off to me.
Yeah.
It's because you could still make it R for violence, but they didn't have to say F word all the time. And then, like the quick dude scene was just awkward.
Oh, yeah.
Because it didn't feel like the character Wolverine that we had known. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It felt awkward. And then, I wasn't a fan of the idea that the big battle is Wolverine fighting his younger self.
Oh, the exact clone, yeah.
I wish it was just like a new character or Omega Red.
Yeah.
You know, but if I was going to reboot X-Men, I would kind of make it about Xavier finding, you know, Cyclops, and or Cyclops finding Xavier.
Yeah.
I think that could be a more interesting story, because if you look at it, all of our other films have kind of been from Xavier's point of view. Mm-hmm. Like he starts it. So what happens when this person comes to him? You know, Charles Xavier, known for mutants, and it's through Scott that he kind of decides to build the school. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in a sense, you could do it like you said. Scott comes to Xavier because Xavier might be the only person to help him find his brother.
Yeah.
And that can be kind of his through line, is while he's helping Xavier, they're looking for Alex, but they don't find him in the first film.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thread of working together. And then as they build up the X-Men and what happens, you know, they're still looking. And then that's when later you get Cerebro in maybe a second film or even a third film. Because, you know, Professor has to find someone who can help him build it.
And if you build up like your Havoc and Polaris, and you eventually have enough characters, you can always spin off like an X Factor or something after a couple of years too.
Yes, exactly. You know, you could. That's why I say like the X-Men is so rich that you could do a whole universe of just the X characters. You know, you have X-Force, you have X-Factor, you have Excalibur. Probably some I don't even know about because I haven't read X comic books in so long. Mm-hmm. You know, and then another thing is eventually, like, I don't know if I'd want to get to it, but really do an accurate Gambit and Rogue.
Yeah.
Because that was something that was so crucial to just, you know, growing up with that 90s cartoon and then getting the films where I'm like, do the math. Yeah. Gambit is like in his 30s and Rogue is a teenager. You know?
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, the Mr. and Mrs. X comic book right now is good. Too bad that's getting canceled along with everything else.
But, I mean, I think the X-Men is going to be, like I said, tricky to reboot. But that's just kind of my idea of where my head's at, is Mr. Sinister. And I think with First Class, you know, they had the idea that mutants were coming out in the 60s. And then they just went through time. In the X-Men 2000, the idea was the presence of mutants was becoming known then.
Yeah.
And that's where I would want to be, is the idea that mutants are just now being revealed.
Yeah.
Because there's more of them that are happening. And Nathaniel Essex, of course, is obsessed with it. And he has been for years. And that's kind of where, you know, I would go with it. And, you know, maybe I need to brush up a little bit for some of the ideas I have to make it, because I like to be comic accurate.
Yeah.
I'm okay with taking some leeways, but sometimes you take some and it hurts. But the idea is maybe he hasn't encountered like a mutant with like such power like he does with Cyclops. And when he first meets, you know, Scott, who's now basically the assistant to Xavier, he's so obsessed with him because he's powerful. It's the first mutant that he's got to see his power on display. So,
well, in the Ultimate Universe, they revealed eventually that, like, in that universe, mutants weren't like, they weren't like a result of evolution. It was like, I guess, I don't know how many generations back, like the government had experimented on people and
that's how I always felt with the 90s cartoon, because I always remembered in Night of the Sentinels, Rogue says, Beast, what made us this way? He's like, television, gamma rays, progress, you know, and then Wolverine's like, lousy luck. And that's why for the most time I was never a fan of the idea of, Wolverine being born in the 1800s.
Oh, yeah.
Was because I liked the idea that the mutations were unnatural.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like we created them through our temperament with genetic engineering, and the world that we live in now is, creating the mutants. I always thought that was a little bit more interesting, and I think that could be another way to go with the reboot, since the original series was so grounded in the idea of evolution that, trying to change it up a little bit, I think that'd be a really good way.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But yeah, I mean, those original X-Men. I mean, they've been in the spotlight the last couple of years. They finally went back, but they were brought to the present for the last couple of years by our old friend
Bendis.
Bendis.
Yes, they were running around. They finally shipped them back.
It's also because the original 5 X-Men, I think they've all kind of gotten something to do in these films. So. But also you'd want to do something fresh because you want to do something new. I'm not sure who else you could add that would really. You could do. You know what you could do in the reboot for the beginning is you could introduce in a way of having Scott Summers meeting Jean and have Psylocke, because I remember as a kid having an X-Men comic where Cyclops had a relationship with Psylocke. And I was like, you could do a cool, unique love triangle thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't remember the issue because I got it from a newsstand while I was at the doctor's office. But you know what I'm saying? Like, do her right and create this tension. And then, then you get to Cyclops and Jean being committed. So when you do bring in Wolverine, and it's like another love triangle, it kind of flips.
Yeah.
To where, the first one's like 2 women who love Scott, and now it's 2 men who love Jean. But you want to wait on that because, once again, that's been played out.
Oh, yeah. And I don't want it in the first movie, but if they can do it better this time, bring in, like, Apocalypse eventually.
I think Apocalypse would be great to just keep alluding to in the background. Like, the legend of, like, the mutant god, or,
and he can eventually transform Angel and stuff.
And then, make him correct. Because the problem with villains in a lot of these comic book is if they're not the easy or like the first one you think of, they might not get a second shot. I mean, think of all the Batman stuff we've gotten. The Joker is such a staple that, they try to find ways to reboot him.
Oh, yeah.
But, there's always ones that kind of suffer because we haven't got to get them back on screen because there's just too many villains to do, And I think that's like, I said with X-Men is Magneto everyone thinks of, but I wouldn't want to do Magneto. And it's like, well, Apocalypse is farther down that line. It's like, we just did Apocalypse. We need something fresh. And doing a different villain is always the easiest, freshest idea. That's why we ended up with the Lizard in The Amazing Spider-Man, which we should not have, but that's another story.
Yeah. But yeah, hopefully time makes everything better.
And I mean, Kevin Feige has said like he doesn't have plans for the X-Men yet.
Oh yeah,
and it's like,
and I think I don't know if legally maybe they might have to wait like 2 years, perhaps.
I think he maybe, but I know Feige said something about like maybe not for the next 5 years having something, which kind of makes sense when you think about the massive impact that it would be to have the X-Men, and that you've been planning out, phase 4 of MCU.
Yeah.
Without this knowledge, so you have a plan already in motion. And
I mean, in that 5 years, I mean, you could be making a movie. It's like 5 years to today, you could drop a movie, and like I think someone said yesterday, like just because they're waiting on X-Men doesn't mean they could be bringing in Fantastic Four and working that in.
I think that's the smartest play because the last Fantastic Four was so bad that everyone's okay with a reboot.
Yeah, and
MCU, like there's nothing lingering from that film. You know, we just ended Dark Phoenix. Mm-hmm. We still have New Mutants out there in somewhere. You and I were talking about that before.
Yeah,
and it's still fresh on people's mind, the characters and everything. You even had the soft reboot of X-Men already as well.
Yeah.
So the Fantastic Four, to me, because it goes back to that character model of people who have an accident who choose to do good.
Yeah, and they're Marvel's first family too. And they really haven't gotten a decent shot at a movie.
God, like no, they have not. So they I think they're the easiest ones that you could really write a movie in right now in the MCU.
Oh yeah,
they would be very easy to bring in without having to convolute things. Like I said, like with the X-Men, I think would be a little bit harder to just kind of drop in and bring in.
Oh yeah, I mean they never had any like real continuity. I mean 2 movies at the most.
Yeah, but all right, Phil, we could keep going forever. Any other last words?
No, I think that's it for me. What about you?
I think I've kind of said my piece. Like I said, it's a tricky subject of kind of how I would reboot it. I would try to avoid certain tropes and just repeating, trying not to repeat yourself. And it's kind of hard because you technically had 2 reboots. So looking kind of towards the Spider-Man Homecoming model of how to reboot, give enough of the background, but move forward and do something a little bit more fresh. So.
All right. So everyone stay tuned. We'll keep you up to date on any movie news, especially if these characters hit the MCU. But Mr. Tyler Patrick, where can people, they want to talk some Superman, where can they get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me, Krypton Report. We're excited because as Phil and I record this, it's Monday night, and Wednesday premieres Krypton Season 2.
Oh, is it already?
Yep, I am. I don't know who's more excited for it, me or Solomon, because he likes Zod and he loves Doomsday. So he's like really pumped about it. So yeah, we got that kicking off, and you can find us on Facebook, Southgate Media. Just search for Krypton Report Pod. You can find it on Twitter, Instagram, and then me personally, you can find me on at JTY Patrick on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Books are sold.
I know we were basically focusing on Marvel characters here, but did you watch Swamp Thing yet?
Oh yeah, dude, I'm digging Swamp Thing.
Yeah, I didn't get the second episode yet, but the first one was good.
All I'm going to say is, if you watch Titans, which I'm kind of rewatching because my brother-in-law is with us, and he's never seen it, so we've been rewatching Titans and looking at like just production value stuff. Swamp Thing is where they've taken it to the next level. First of all, they shot it in the States. They have more cinematic grade A talent, both as producers and directors. People who directed successful movies. Even Brian Tyler, who's done the score for countless Marvel films, has done the score for Swamp Thing.
Oh, that's what I said. I think out of all the series so far, Swamp Thing looks like, visually, it's the best looking. It looks like a movie almost. Like,
yeah, I mean, I could see this Swamp Thing walk up next to, Aquaman or Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah.
And I've been reading more about why the cancellation. I think part of it is what I've read is with the AT&T merger. Something about contractually having to, they have a deal to film where they are, but North Carolina, they screwed up the taxes.
Yeah,
now they're demanding more money out of them for filming there. So it's kind of like, I think they have to cancel or something to break.
Yeah.
The agreement to be able to relocate. It's what I'm saying. It's one of those things where it's a lot of the background crap that. Yeah, we don't get exposed to.
Yeah, well, that, and I think Warner's is going to put out a bigger app like Disney Plus. So
yeah, I mean,
fold all this in, or is it going to continue? It's probably like, okay, well, we're not going to shoot until we figure out who's going to pay for the production.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like the Disney Plus. Now, I was having this conversation at work. Disney's going to charge us $7 a month and we're going to get so much content.
Oh, yeah.
And then Warner Brothers wants to do it.
Yeah.
And now, if Warner's did it where they included DC Universe with Warner's catalog, with, like, you know, the Looney Tunes and all that type of stuff they own, and they charge $7 for that, it's fine. But they want to charge more because they want to include HBO and Cinemax. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want HBO.
Yeah, no.
I already, you know, a lot of people already have it in different ways.
Yeah.
So if you don't do an option without it, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so that's my little quick take on that. But Swamp Thing is awesome. I recommend everyone, if you're a comic book fan, check out at least the pilot. Phil, watch the second episode.
Oh, I'm going to, yeah. Gonna make room for Krypton. All right, so yeah, everyone, send us your thoughts on any of this stuff. Capesandlunatics at gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/capesandlunatics, at capeslunatics on Twitter, Capes and Lunatics on Instagram. The voicemail 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And go check out Work in Progress, capesandlunatics.org. Yeah, I'm not pushing you, Lil. All right. Fox, they never know what they had. I mean, they had Daredevil, they couldn't make that work. I mean, Deadpool showed them how to make that work. Disney's going to show them how to make the X-Men work. They'll show them how to make the Fantastic Four work.
They just, I don't know, Fox.
If they had been a little bit better, maybe they could have made that Sony deal like Sony did for Spider-Man.
I'm just thinking, like, yeah.
Although they're trying to they want that to get Spider-Man 3.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
That shows up in Spider-Man 3. What you do to my hope?
Venom's such a weird movie.
I don't believe the hype. Mysterio's a bad guy.
Oh, yeah, totally.